And we're live. Welcome to episode 169 of the Self-Publishing Roundtable. I am your moderator, Robert Chaz Chute, and my co-panelist tonight is Xavier Granville.
Yo, what up, internets?
Internets. Our special guest for this episode is AWOL. He's AWOL. He had to show his house. We dropped out a guest, but that's okay because this is the voice of the resistance. Viva la revolution. Wolverines! Broadcasting to Free America, the chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall.
To America from Canada.
Yes, if you wanted to see two Canadians talk, well, I'm sorry. That just doesn't make any sense. So to everyone watching us live on selfpublishingroundtable.com, we encourage you to leave your questions and comments, and we will make our best effort to get them into the conversation. Having said that, it's only Xavier and I tonight because Krishan is got some car issue and Erica is off somewhere. Wade is in prison. So we're talking tonight.
As he should be.
As he should be.
Monster.
The monster. So we're just going to fly by the seat of our pants a little bit. We do want to talk a little bit about a couple different things. My first priority is that I haven't talked to my friend X in ages. X has been a huge part of the show, and then he wasn't. Where you have been AWOL, mister. Where you been? What's been happening?
Well, I started a almost full-time job. It's somewhere between part-time and full-time, where I do closed captioning for the hearing impaired. I do a lot of watching and a lot of typing, and I'm still obviously writing and working towards publishing. But it's just kind of taking the back seat a little bit more nowadays. I still write daily, but it's not so much of me kind of having this drive of a competition where I want to be publishing all the time, or at least get to that point where I'm taking it professionally right now. I'm kind of right now I'm on like a 6-month plan. So
no time for Nano this year? NaNoWriMo?
Well, I'm taking part in it, but I'm just doing it for fun. I'm not worried so much about hitting the 50K so much as wanting to come out of this month with words rather than not.
That's interesting. You know, I know that with NaNoWriMo, a lot of us are deeply into doing NaNoWriMo. But I think I've sensed a little bit of a change this year. Oh my God, Krishan is joining the call. Krishan. And there you are. For a second there, you were not there, and now you are. How you doing, Fabulous?
I am doing fine. I keep on forgetting that I have this little slidey thing that covers my camera because I'm paranoid, and I keep on forgetting to open it.
Okay, well, stop that. We have
Stop
to
being paranoid.
X is on the show, you're on the show, and we have no guests, so we are talking right now a little bit about NaNoWriMo, and I'm glad you're here because I have a question for you.
Yes.
I was about to ask X, and he can answer too. Have you guys noticed, I don't know, like I made a bit of a joke at the top of the show of, broadcasting to Free America, like that exists anymore. And
what I also liked is how you refer to us as the revolution, because the revolution is not going to be televised, and that's because it's going to be on Canadian television. No one's going to be watching it. No one will watch it.
Well, I don't know if it is the latest author earnings report or if it is a kind of a general sense that I have. It was funny. I listened to the Slate Culture Gabfest recently, and most of the time those guys at Slate pretend to be journalists, and yes, they have a liberal slant, but they don't want to pick sides. And what was hilarious about listening to it is they read funereal poetry. They were all so goddamn depressed, and the whole mood of it was incredibly down. And I'm wondering, from stuff I'm seeing on Nano, I wonder what the participation is like this year. I'm not sure that there are as many writers who are trying to write quite as furiously as they have over the last couple of years. Because what we've been told over the last couple of years from many, many people is write a lot of books. Our guest tonight, Bob Mayer, he was, what did he write, 14 books a year?
Yeah.
And a lot of people cannot keep up that pace. And I'm thinking there's a little bit of burnout happening out there.
Mm-hmm.
Thoughts? Am I crazy? Am I making it up?
No, you're not crazy. Absolutely not. With the rise in, a lot of people are trying to keep pace with romance writers, and romance writers who have been putting in the most excellent work for a very long time. And so they think they have to write fast all the time. I personally like writing fast because that's how my brain works. What? Okay. And I was like, what? But there are a lot of people who are trying to make money and making money now and write now and put out now, and they're just getting tired. Absolutely. And then there are some who, like me, with the election the way it came out, I didn't care about nothing. Not so much because of myself, but because of folks who actually know that I gotta go to them and help them and take care of them because they've been assaulted or they've been harassed. And nothing takes the fight out of you to write than having somebody cry on your shoulder for 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And so I've just been like, you know what, writing can wait for right now. And I wasn't able to get into it. There have been folks in my Nano group who felt the same thing and were able to get back. And I just adore them that they're able to do that. But it's been weird. It's been a mix between, oh my God, I need to write escapist fantasy because that's going to sell. And then there's folks who are just like, this has bummed me out and I don't want to write anymore. And then there's a group who has Eye and the Tiger playing in the background and are just plowing through it. So I'm seeing a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried. I sell most of my books in the States, and I'm concerned for my customer base. I want them to do well and feel financially secure so they can buy books. And, just because that's nice too. And I think that there is always an urgency about, making the rent and making more money. We're all interested in making more money, and we'd like to do it by writing full time. But I think for a lot of people doing Nano, this whatever side you're on, I think the election took a bit of a hit. On them this year, in that there's people who are walking away from it for a while because they need some recovery time. And there are people who are also distracted by all the social media looking at, I have to say, I'm actually watching CNN again. And I haven't watched CNN for quite a long time, just to catch, what's the latest on the transition and all that nonsense.
Yeah, it's true. Even here, as a Canadian, I can say that it's been one of those things. It's hard not to watch right now. No one expected any of those kind of results, let alone kind of a race that long of two individuals that just could create such controversy. So it's hard to look away, right?
Yes, it was the dumpster fire. Oh my God, it's coming towards us. Election 2016. It was really bad. And Bill and
South Park,
my husband.
I thought South Park did it right, where it's the arrogant douche versus the turd sandwich. That sums it up perfectly.
Yeah,
we should have been eating the shit sandwich, but we didn't. That's the scariest part. We're supposed to be eating that shit sandwich. That's what we do.
Right, we're supposed to be getting tetanus and the ptomaine and the hoof and mouth and cat scratch, not all that. But we've always been political junkies, and so we did. I don't know if you saw it, but we did Team Hannah election coverage, where he scours through all the incoming votes and everything, and we do our calls before the networks do. And we were only off by a couple of states, truly. And we had it called for Trump at about 11:30 Central Time.
Yeah, that was actually really interesting to watch because I stayed up till 3. X was telling me he stayed up till 2 or watching the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
I was watching CNN and I recognized the pattern where John King was fooling around with rural counties in New Hampshire trying to dig up some votes. And I thought, oh, I've seen this movie before. You guys,
Yeah.
you don't want to call it. Because I think the Young Turks called it, because I was watching an online show called The Young Turks, their podcast. Yeah, I was watching them, and I think they called it around the same time you did, Krishan.
Yeah, they lost their shit.
Well, it was interesting to watch, but what got me, one thing I remember about that show is Cenk Uygur was watching it going, why haven't they called it? It's done. This is done. Why haven't they called it? And it was a long time before they got around to calling it. So actually about that, as a writer, do you have any worries about taking a political stand in public?
Me?
Yeah.
No, absolutely not, because that is who I am as a writer. And
it's going to come through in your writing.
Right. It's the filter which I see the world. And honestly, if people, you don't necessarily have to agree with me to like what I write.
Mm-hmm.
Number one. Number two, I've never been that kind of girl who said, oh, you voted for Trump, you must be a racist. No, you may not have realized what was coming with it. Right? And most of the folks that I know who voted for Trump, I live in a very conservative county. I go to a very conservative church. And a lot of them were thinking cash in the pocket because they got a lot of money, right? They will shank you if they thought that you were sitting there trying to mess with me or my kids. Absolutely. No question. These folks are going to heaven, voted for Trump. I'm like, and they're wondering why they're being called racist. And we got to have that conversation. Those are the people that I'm around, right? Mm-hmm. And so they know the filter which I see the world. Mm-hmm. And if you can't see past that to my fiction, then I'm not a good fit for you.
Yeah, I think that's
and I'm
a good
not
answer.
afraid to say that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think ultimately you're going to be bleeding through when it comes to your characters and your plots as far as your political views. It's going to come through no matter what, whether... Because, you know, you might have someone who's completely against your political views as the main protagonist, but maybe that's the reason why at the very end of it they change their ways. You know, that might be the story. And right now it's one of those times where it's going to be interesting, like you were saying, Robert, as to how many people are going to be feeling a kind of a malaise or kind of entropy as far as writing right now, because it's just we're in the middle of such a crazy situation where there might be people in another ballpark just, you know, this is exactly what they needed in order to spark that new dystopian fiction, right, type of a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, wasn't there some kind of theory about whether vampires or zombies were on the rise? It was based on whether there was a Democrat or a Republican in the White House?
Oh, so are you saying vampires are coming back?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get
surge of zombies.
It has. That may not be that, you know, causation is not correlation is not causation. But I did find the theory interesting. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know a lot of writers who are purposely apolitical. Like they do have political opinions, but they don't share them at all.
Yeah.
I personally feel that this election in particular struck me that it was too important to stay silent, so I didn't. Mm-hmm. And speaking out or writing out, however you do it, that's what writers do. Yes. And you know, I've got a voice, I got thoughts, and I'm going to share them. And you don't have to like them. No. Of course, if you disagree, you're wrong. But we'll move on. Anyway.
And I will destroy you.
I will destroy you. Hey. Yes, I kill my enemies over and over and over again.
I have to say that this has been the best time this last week or so for world building, because you listen to the reactions and you try to imagine what a world would be like in their shoes for a day. Or if you place the same circumstance in your fictional world, like in mine, Alizar, I was listening to a report about how gun sales have dropped.
Interesting.
For the first time in 8 years, gun sales were on the rise, new stores were opening, new products were coming out, people were making a lot of profits. Mm-hmm. And then after the election, they just disappeared.
Well, yeah, it was interesting. You know, people have been told that Obama was coming for their guns for 8 years, and then the message moved on very smoothly to Hillary's coming for your guns. Mm-hmm. And yeah, the gun manufacturers will maybe the owners of those companies won't buy an 8th yacht. I feel bad for them.
But not only that, but well, yes, Obama and then Hillary were coming for your guns. And that was considered buying a gun, buying a lot of guns, buying a lot of ammunition was not only stockpiling, but it was an act of political defiance. Don't tread on me. I'm going to go and I'm going to have this gun and I'm going to shoot it, pew, pew. But then it dries up. And so you think about a scenario in your universe. What political mechanism works best when the opposition is running? Right? Mm-hmm. What industries would work best when the opposition is running? Right. What would they do to ensure that a fear-mongering environment survives so they can make their money? Think Halliburton. Mm-hmm. War is profitable.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. It sounds like you're describing war.
I just ran across a show called The Expanse. Mm-hmm. Have you heard of it?
I have.
I just watched a little bit of it before the show tonight, and I noticed Jonathan Banks was in it, so I had to watch because Jonathan Banks, Breaking Bad, and Better Call Saul.
Of course,
he's the reason to watch anything.
Yes.
I love Mike on those shows. But what was interesting was before this show started, you get these, you know, the cards at the front that basically kind of give you the setup for the world. Mm-hmm. And there's Earth and Mars and the miners in the belt. And Mars is a kind of the war platform. They've got all the weapons, and Earth has the air and the water, and that's like gold. And the belters are going for the minerals, I guess. And I don't know. It was just. It basically set it up like, you know, you're opening the show with they're on the brink of war, and you have these 3 groups to play with. And I thought, oh yeah, this is like mini Game of Thrones. It's like about a third of the Game of Thrones in space. So yeah, when you're world building, it's funny. A few years ago, I was moving out west with my wife, she must be obeyed, and we had a long trip ahead of us, and a friend of mine worked for a publishing company. He gave us a bunch of these audio tapes of audiobooks on tape, and we were somewhere around Thunder Bay when we popped in this tape. I was like, oh, hey, this is sci-fi. This could, you know, kill 9 hours. Let's check this out. And it was kind of the setup like that of, you know, these are the factions. But it went on for about, we shut it off after about 10 minutes because it was all these many races against all these many other races, alien races of all, with all different weird names that you couldn't remember. And you really needed a flow chart and a map. And it was too big a world, and they were.
It gave you too much off the top.
Oh, it was this huge info dump. It was ridiculous. And that got published. It was just, oh my God. Maybe it was some long existing series and we came in the middle or something, but I felt like I walked into the middle of a movie. It was like, I've got to get the hell out of here. This is horrible.
It's probably good that you don't remember who it was by.
Probably good, yes. It just, And the thing is, I like those ambitious things. Like it's funny when you watch those shows of honest trailers for movies.
Yes.
And the one that does Game of Thrones is kind of hilarious because you go, oh, here's the 5 characters you do know, and it's like, oh, it's that guy and Khaleesi. I know her, and the guy who plays the dwarf, the imp, and then they go through all these other characters.
Like, you're just making stuff up.
Yeah. Oh my god, it's a cast of thousands, and I don't know who all these people are, but the thing is, Game of Thrones sets it up so you actually do, you are invested in the worlds, and you do catch it. But in between seasons, you certainly forget it all.
And they have to
sorry, go ahead, Krishan.
And they have to remind you constantly.
Yes, that's right. There's another clip. I wish I had it off had the link. There's for Game of Thrones, there's all those setups that are something of this, like Hand of the King, da 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 da. It's everything is something of something else, and they go through the list, and as they build this list, you go, holy shit, it is something of something all the time. And if you read the books, the term boiled leather comes up an awful lot too.
It's tough.
It's it's ambitious to build a big world, and it's a lot to juggle. It's really hard to do. And actually, that reminds me of something I want to ask you guys about right after. Dun, 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 here comes the mysterious silence. We actually have our first sponsor on the Self-Publishing Roundtable. Everybody. Oh. Yeah, well, enough of that. Anyway, what you need to know about is escapistreads.com. Many folks in the self-publishing and book blogging community are unhappy with their current site host. From poor performance to faceless support, Chris from Escapist Reads has heard it all. With Escapist Reads hosting, Chris is trying to change that. What started as hosting for some friends and colleagues is now open to all members of the indie author and book blogging community. So Escapist Reads hosting is dedicated to providing you the WordPress hosting you need, so you'll have one less thing to worry about. All plans have WordPress installed and are ready to go. So standard hosting starts at $5 a month, and for $10 a month, Chris will handle upgrades and backups for you. All plans offer 2 months free when you pay annually. So visit escapistreads.com for more information. That is escapistreads.com. And cue the choir. Oh! That was horrible.
Yeah, I want to sample that so that way we can use it again.
Yeah, it was the Mormon Tabernacle football team. Anyway.
Yeah. Thanks, bros. Thanks for coming out.
Are you guys watching Walking Dead?
No, I'm done.
Okay, I'm going to press on with this question.
Do it.
If you have an apocalyptic scenario, say zombies have taken over the world, and there's no cure, what are you fighting for when everything is horrible and everything is terrible, and you can't get any M&Ms, and there is no Wi-Fi? You can't watch a new season of Game of Thrones. It's all this desolate landscape, and you are either the tortured or the torturer. How do you keep hope going in your narrative? Because what I'm finding with The Walking Dead is I'm watching this going, what is the end game here? Like, what are you fighting for? Are you fighting for the right to die early of prostate cancer? Or what? What is the point of fighting so hard to survive?
No,
it seems like there's nowhere to go with it.
It's at that point in the show narrative where it seems like everyone should have walked into water and breathed deeply already. Like, it's ridiculous.
I find it, as the pessimist on the show, I'm surprised that I'm the one with the optimistic. I don't even know the word to know, so I can't talk. Okay.
No.
I'm surprised, because I'm usually a pessimist, that I'm the optimistic one here. You fight for another day. Some folks are just too much of a coward to sit there and chew on their own gun. And they're too afraid to get ripped apart by a Zombo. So you fight because you want another day as you. And if I was writing a zombie apocalypse where there's no cure and there's just going to be folks floating around here chewing on my limbs if I don't run fast enough, it will be about finding the little things, about, hey, they figured out how to make M&Ms. Right?
I figured out how to grow some weed in this desolate wasteland.
Exactly.
And you shall be the apocalypse king.
Yes, I shall.
That's interesting because, I read a lot of apocalyptic fiction. I write a lot of apocalyptic fiction. But I always have a secondary goal. There is, I put all my characters through hell, but there is a payoff at the end.
Yeah.
And what I don't see here is a payoff. It's not like you have the sense that this is even like pioneer times where they'll somehow rebuild society again. It's only about survival. And when you're watching Castaway with Tom Hanks getting thinner and thinner, he still had this opportunity to escape to sea. But when I'm watching Walking Dead, sometimes I'm thinking, why am I watching Walking Dead again? I've forgotten. Because I get this sense that this is just watching Tom Hanks get thinner and thinner, but he never gets off the island.
Yeah, and even as far as the example of Castaway goes, the payoff is not that he goes home and gets the girl like he dreamed of. She's been with another dude for many years, that she's moved on, but that's enough payoff. It's the fact that he's alive and safe and he can move on with his life. That's the payoff. Otherwise, putting him through everything would not be worth anything. That's the problem that I think some post-apocalyptic fiction authors tend to have, or at least maybe when it's translated to film and stuff like that, the idea of bleakness and desolateness and all those descriptors that usually go with post-apocalyptic don't always or shouldn't equate to hopelessness, because hopelessness is a very hard thing to do correctly, because it like you were saying, like you have to have some sort of payoff, otherwise it is just depressing. And if that's what you're going for, okay, but do realize there's no arc to that. You've just put people through a bunch of depressing things. It's like the zombie equivalent of Requiem for a Dream.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I think that the danger that a lot of apocalyptic fiction runs into, and you can actually see it on Walking Dead quite clearly, is they find a spot, that place ends up sucking, and they go to another spot, and that place ends up sucking, and they go to another spot, and now they're finally at a spot they want to keep, but then somebody else wants to turn it into a place and ends up sucking, and
but then we realize that we suck. It becomes an internal battle. That's what gets me really annoyed about a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction, is that if it's not external forces that divide people, it's internal ones. So you don't ever have any kind of hope for people in general.
Yeah, I guess I see what you're saying. I guess my point is that it feels like it's the story gets recycled, because one thing you see on Walking Dead a lot is a whole lot of the same speech over and over again of, this is the way things are now. This is the way things are now. This is the way things are now. And it's like, stop the loop. Stop the loop.
But also, zombie narratives are limited. They are terminal, right? No pun intended. They're supposed to have a certain shelf life. And then you jump over either to Fear the Walking Dead, where we're talking about a whole new set of characters, or you jump in another point in time. And I think the one narrative that did this the best was The Last of Us. Because that is another zombie story that there isn't a cure. And for those who haven't played it by now, you really need to play it because I'm about to spoil it. There is no cure. But the story...
For people who don't know, it is a video game.
Sorry?
It is a video game. It
is a video game, but I think the narrative holds. Mm-hmm. And it is about people trying to regain their humanity through their struggle, right? Joel, who lost his daughter in the preamble to the game, first part of the game, and now has become a father figure to Ellie some 20 years later, a girl around the same age, getting her to safety, and then figuring out that the people who wanted to get her to safety didn't really want her to be safe, right? And all through, they finished that narrative. And then the next part of the game was another section in time with Ellie and her best friend. You had a snippet of she had a best friend and they died. The reason why she found out she was immune was because they were supposed to die together. That was a different story, a different narrative, same zombie, same location. But it was something, it was a different aim. And then the third one, which is now comic books, where person who may or may not be Ellie is about 10 years older and pregnant. And the story about how did that happen? Mm-hmm. Right? It cannot be 8 or 9 freaking years of the same people doing the same thing because you run out. You have to change that narrative. You have to do that. Or else it'll grow stupid.
Yeah, I because of the stuff I've written, I've kind of gotten this reputation as being the apocalyptic guy, and I am looking at new stories coming up next year that I want something. I want to do more apocalyptic stuff, but I want it to be different from a different perspective, different characters from the stuff I've done in the past, but something with kind of a high concept hook. So one thing that I've really gotten into as an example of this is, have you guys read Y, the Last Man on Earth?
I have, yeah.
I really enjoy those comics. I'm having a good time with it. It's basically, they call it gendercide. One day, all the men on Earth die all at once, except for one, and his monkey.
Yeah, don't forget his monkey.
And his monkey. And the story is how society responds to that. And, you know, there's the women who are upset about it, and there's a large contingent of women who say, well, all right.
Yeah, but it's the same way that, like, almost like with Animal Farm, where it's just like they draw that parallel. So eventually, the more hostile women slowly become like the men of the society. It's just in a different way now.
It becomes a matriarchy.
Yeah, exactly. Where they have their certain control, and then there's women in control, and then women rebels, and then you throw Y in the middle of it.
Yeah. No, it's a really fun story, but he's on the run, and you know there are people who want him for all sorts of different reasons. You know, there's people breeding, killing him. Yes, and it's a road trip basically from all that I've read so far. And he runs into some fantastic characters, and some of it's kind of sexy, and some of it's the opposite of sexy, and it's all pretty violent, and I like those what if scenarios that leave the reader thinking, okay, well, what would happen next? Like, what would my place be in this society? Because what I find interesting is a lot of people who really find the apocalypse interesting I'm not sure. There's a lot of drama to the end of the world and the high stakes and all that, and I get all that, and that's why I write that stuff and I enjoy it. And then there are people who kind of want to watch the world burn, Master Bruce. They're reading it and they're kind of going, "Yeah, that'll be a good time." And what I in this Plague of Days, I have some line in there about how a lot of people think of the apocalypse and they figure, hey, I'm an instant millionaire. I can have whatever I want. I can, raid the candy factory, and it'll be a lot of pleasant afternoons of shooting looters. And what it's really going to be is you got to plant a lot of cabbages, and you better like a whole lot of cabbage soup, man, because it's going to suck. That's my take on the apocalypse. Very Christopher Nolan, I'm afraid.
Yes.
Unless you like cabbage soup.
Unless you love borscht, yeah.
But let's think about that a little bit. Let's stretch that out. Instead of one race, what if one entire age group just vanished? Like everyone over the age of 60.
Yeah, there's been a lot of books that have played with that idea. Tom Perrotta, is it The Remainders or the Leftovers?
The Leftovers.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that was random. And what I liked about that and hated about the show was the fact that they kind of explored people who are gone for no good reason. They never exposed the reason why people just vanished and disappeared. And as a religious person, I adored the fact that there was a lot of priests and ministers who didn't get taken up when a lot of folks thought it was the rapture and had to totally rethink what they believed and how religion morphed in the sight of that. Mm-hmm. But I'm not talking about like random people. I'm talking about if you were over the age of 50, you no longer exist. What would that mean for economics, industry, technology? Who are the keepers of the kingdom? Who actually have knowledge? Now, young people, they have the vim and vigor and they're working off of what people have built. But what happens when the people who actually hold the pins of that together are gone?
And if you turn that on its head, you would say all the children, if they disappeared and suddenly no one could breed anymore. It was only it's the last generation. How would, because we see a lot of that nowadays where there's kind of like, I'm not caring about my future generation. I'm going to take the quick money on these oil schemes, these investment schemes, blah blah blah. The big business stuff that happens all the time. That's the crooked shit. It would be interesting to see how those same people's perspectives would change, or maybe become even more malicious, depending on the stakes, right? Because given a world where now suddenly no one's caring about the next generation, even more than before.
Right. Or
which side would you side on? Are you going to try to make as much of a utopia within the next, X amount of years that you have left, or are you going to, just rage anarchy like the rest?
It depends. How young are the children? Because let's imagine that is children under the age of 2 and someone just adopted and the child's gone. Or they've been trying to get pregnant for a long time, finally had the baby and child's gone. That's a totally different narrative than if your teenager that you want to lock in a barrel all of a sudden poofs out and you can't find them.
Yeah.
The realization, the dread that dawns on you, those things are vastly different because you're always with a baby because it can't do anything without you. Had it been my girls when they were teenagers, my oldest one, it'd probably be a good solid week before I'd notice because she was always doing something. Honestly.
Something else about apocalyptic fiction that I honestly don't like is when you have a scenario set up where you don't see the collapse of society. I'm really interested in how it starts. And so you see that a bit in The Stand, for instance, where you see the beginning of the virus escaping from the military installation, and there's
that's like the first third of the book.
Yeah, they do. He does get, Stephen King does get into the action, but there's a lot of these shows or books or radio dramas, whatever you're watching, they go right to, and here we are, and everything's desolate, and I'm poking through the back of a gas station, hoping that there's still a can of Coke left in the machine, like in The Road, and I'm really interested to see. I know it's a slower open, but I'm really interested to see how things fall apart and how quickly things fall apart and how fast will people turn on each other. And so that's in This Plague of Days. That was my first book. That takes up most of the first book, is how things fall apart to set up the world for the next two books. And I really wanted to play with that. And now I'm worried with the last election that it feels prophetic. I could not resist I'm sorry.
You know you want to. You know you.
I want to.
Well, it was funny because watching this election, there was a parable that I drew to it because I was thinking about this one character that's in a role-playing game that I play named Caden Kaleen, who was a drunkard who ascended to godlyhood, and he tricked a test. Like there's like an ascension type of a thing where like you can come take the test, and if you can pass the test, then you can become a god. But no one knows how he did it. It's like either he went in and drunkenly stumbled his way through it, or someone gave him a bit of good luck and he just managed to go through it with ease. But either way, this kind of drunken idiot became a god, and I'm just it made me think a lot of Donald Trump. And how this drunken idiot suddenly has become this appointed high leader, and then also it made me think of Game of Thrones in that one of those classic Cersei Lannister lines, where it's like because you look at King Robert became king because of his high status as a warrior in battle, and he led his people to a revolution that gave him the Iron Throne. And she gets this line that says, "And do you really still think that heroes make good kings?"
Mm-hmm.
It's that same thing, right that we're seeing right now. It's Ronald Reagan all over again. He's an actor, but he is the person that we think represents people.
Right. Well, the thing is that he was also a governor between being an actor and being president. Yeah. That was legit, because he actually did some stuff. Knew how it worked a little bit, a little something before.
Oh no, yeah. I'm not trying to bring down Reagan's status. What I'm just saying is that it takes more about it's the image rather than being anyone who actually has actual experience. It's the fact that he has a face that people can identify with.
Mm-hmm. Perception is reality, gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. So, and going back to your point for a moment, Chaz, have you read Cell by Stephen King?
Yes, I loved it. And what's funny about that is people say the same thing to him all the time. So why did that all happen? And he said, I'm not interested. Because one day you pick up your phone and you turn into a raging killer, and you don't need to know.
No.
Isn't now... Do you know, I think there was a movie made of that with Samuel L. Jackson, I think, and John Cusack. Is that coming, or did that come and go? Sorry?
I want to say that it was a series. Maybe it was. Hold on. Yes, 2016. So apparently it was
not a hit
this year.
apparently not a hit.
Yeah.
I really haven't heard anything from it. I heard it was coming, and then I haven't heard a thing since.
Yeah, John Cusack and Samuel L. Jackson. Yes, it came out in June, and I haven't heard anything since. I don't forgot about that movie.
So, it was a movie or a series?
Yeah, it was a movie.
Wow, straight to video, I guess. Straight to Netflix. Well, I love the book. A lot of people like that book. It was a zombie book without pushing too hard on the Z button, but it was pretty random and fun. And the thing I think that makes whatever Stephen King is writing, what makes it work is the characterization. You really cared about the characters. Mm-hmm. I really loved The Mist, the book. I hated The Mist, the movie. And actually, that's a perfect example of what we were talking about earlier, where in the book, there is one slim hope that you are left with. Mm-hmm. And in the movie, it's, spoiler alert, he shot his kid for nothing. Oh.
Yeah.
They went for a real downer ending where just, throwing one slim lifeline would have been nice.
Yes. The thing that I love, I'm going to finish it. I'm going to say this and I'll let you finish. In the commentary to Storm of the Century, which is another Stephen King miniseries, they said that Stephen King doesn't write about things that go bump in the night. He writes about the family who lives in the house where things go bump in the night. Mm-hmm. It's always, always, always about the characters. And that's one of the reasons why one of my favorites of his is Storm of the Century, of his horror. We could talk about Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile another time. But in his horror, because it is about how characters interact with one another when isolated on an island and faced with imminent peril, imminent apocalypse. Colin Feore, the guy who y'all know and love because y'all Canadians, because he's in everything, shows up in jail, locked up, and wreaks havoc. And what do you want? A baby. Give me what I want, and I'll leave you alone. And they don't believe him long enough for all hell to break loose. I love that. I absolutely love that, because apocalypse can happen with the lights on, and it can happen when the sun is in the noonday position. It doesn't have to be all darkness and hazy stuff and zombos.
Yeah, I tend to write about huge worlds and the whole world ending kind of thing. But one thing I love about The Green Mile is most of it happens in a cell block, and there's so much going on with these characters, and there's those you love, and of course Tom Hanks. Everybody loves Tom Hanks. If you don't like Tom Hanks, there's something wrong with you. And then there's characters that you love to hate. But it is so incredibly charming and clever and watchable, and you love Michael Clark Duncan, rest in peace. And it's just there's so much in that story.
It's 11 o'clock.
I think that what's interesting as far as making a book into a movie, the Green Mile was a lot like the movie was an awful lot like the book, was it not?
Yes.
Yeah, because there was a lot of elements of The Stand. The Stand was done as a TV miniseries back when they used to do that, and it stuck pretty close to the book as well, and that was pretty darn well done, as I recall.
Yeah.
It's a long time now.
But the first couple episodes are pretty spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, I really love when a movie sticks close to the book, because the cliche is everybody says the book was better than the movie, but it's really interesting when the movie is the book. Like you watch Fight Club, it's like they translated the book as close to the film as they possibly could. There's a huge amount of dialogue that's lifted right out of the book and slapped right into the film. it's really nice to see that, because what that tells me is the writing is cinematic, and when you can write a scene as if you are seeing it in your head, then that's what you're putting into your reader's head. So,
and that's what you want to put into their head.
Exactly. That's what we want. Hey guys, it's funny. Bob Mayer was supposed to be our guest, New York Times bestselling writer of military fiction and romance. He's a collaborator and all this great stuff. And unfortunately, former Green Beret, unfortunately, could not make it tonight. So X and I said, "Are we going to have a show?" And I said, "Well, we've got that ad read. We got to do that ad read, right?" And I didn't think that you'd be showing up for another half an hour or something, Krishan. So I'm so glad you made it tonight.
I don't either, but guess who's in the shop?
Well, that worked out great. And I'm also, aside from pushing escapistreads.com, I also really wanted to connect with you after the election and have a little bit of bullshit relaxation time with you guys. So I'm really glad that we managed to do that tonight.
Well, and yes, I think that's what everyone's doing.
Right? Diffuse. That's what this is.
Diffuse. That's right. And what better way to diffuse than write a book, read a book, escape into fiction? That's one thing. You may not feel like writing right now for whatever reasons. Maybe you got people to take care of. Maybe you just are down. Maybe you're excited and celebrating and don't feel like you have the time to write right now. But
lynch mob meetings,
Thank you, X.
Clan rallies.
Yeah.
Send your hate mail to XavierGranville.com.
Yeah. Absolutely.
At Xavier Granville.
You racist people in the States are hilarious. I can't believe that that's still a thing.
Well, Xavier is now moving to Mars. Anyway, I'm really glad that we got together tonight and had the show after all, because we actually thought about canceling, but it really worked out that we didn't cancel, and I'm really glad we didn't. So tonight we had Xavier Granville. When's your next book coming out, X?
Probably in January, I would assume.
Okay, and what's that one about?
It's called Beyond the Veil. That's the tentative title right now. At least that's what the series is. It's there's a war going on between four factions of realities, and I have a female protagonist that's thrown in the middle of it between God, the devil, the shadow, and the witch, because God can't fess up to the fact that he did not create the shadow realm and the realm of the witches, and that's what the main thing that the devil finds annoying. He won't admit that, and that's the conflict between heaven and hell, just a disagreement of who actually is the head honcho, because the devil seeing
over the deed?
Yeah, basically the devil's seeing the fact that there's also witches and vampires coming into reality, and God's not owning up to creating those, so who the fuck did?
Wasn't me.
We'll see.
I like to think of it as God versus the devil in a really amped up version of Office Space, the movie. And Krishan Keller-Hanna, what are you working on?
Oh wow! I'm gonna stop about if y'all love the stuff about God being kind of crazy, y'all need to read the Jehovah Contract and it's a story about somebody puts a hit on God.
That sounds great.
You need to read that.
Is that a Kevin Smith movie?
Sorry?
That's a Kevin Smith movie as well.
Sounds like I am working on a freebie, yo. I am working on Alizar, the Story Mother's Guide. The Story Mother is me, by the way. And I've heard your feedback. You love the stories, but you're like, this is a complex universe. And I'm thinking, really? And so I've decided to give you a little travel log where we travel to all the nations of Alizar, introduce you to some folks. And in this book, I'm also going to have 2 short stories. The Fable, The Mother of Majera, how magic came into the world and then got broken up and then handed out into pieces. And then Grief Eater, which was the first story I wrote after all of my notes and manuscripts were destroyed in 2005. Because a lot of people know that my ex-husband destroyed all of that, and I'm writing this from scratch. And Grief Eater was the first thing that I wrote after that. I'm going to be including that in there as well.
Very cool.
That's going to be coming out in December. And next year, a few things happen. Number 1, I'm going to be doing my own podcast called Mind the Gap for freshman indie writers.
Ooh,
we're going to talk about you. Yeah, I know. Alongside SPRT, so not to cannibalize, but just talking to people who were like me, were all starry-eyed before they started publishing, and then they hit that button and then things got real really quick. We're going to talk to them about that, usually folks within the first or second year of publishing. And I am finishing up season 1 of The Coursers and season 1 of Tales of Alizar, and it's going to be a parallel story. It's the same thing. Both Sage Alacor and Duke Cole want the same thing, and they're fighting each other for it. And each series has their main character side of the story. I'm really excited about that. That will be in January and February.
That sounds cool.
I'm a busy Black girl.
I hear you, sister. I too am busy. I have...
I thought you were about to say you too are a busy Black girl, Robert.
Well, I almost did, and then I held back because, not supposed to. But thank you, X. We can always count on you to stir up the races and call me a Black girl.
It's all about how you feel inside, right?
Well, for me, I've got a bunch of books coming out in the next few months. I've got hopefully 3 books coming out before Christmas. So... it's crazy times right now. I've got a erotica book that I won't be under my name. I've got a nonfiction book about stress management because that's one of my areas of expertise. And I have a book that is the next book in the Dimension War series, but it's new characters, kind of another front on the same war. So same universe, but and it's kind of it kind of comes across as Michael Crichton. There's a lot of NSA versus the aliens invading our dimension stuff, and it's a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying it. So. That all said, oh, by the way, you can find me at allthatchaz.com, Chaz with 2 Z's, 2 Z's if you're nasty. Now that we've got that nonsense out of the way, thank you very much to both of you for being here tonight. And a big thank you to the live viewers and our listeners. We'll be back next Thursday at 7 p.m. PDT, 10 p.m. EDT. I don't know, what is that CST, Krishan?
It's 9
CST, to record live with a special guest, and I believe that special guest, I'm hoping, will it be Bob Mayer? Are we going to try to get Bob back?
Yeah, we're going to get Bob back. Yeah, we're in the middle of scheduling right now. Next 2 or 3 weeks.
All right. Well, I'm sorry that we couldn't have Bob. If you came for Bob and stayed for us, we thank you very much, because I'm sure we're not quite as scintillating as New York Times bestseller Bob Mayer, but we look forward to talking to him with our panel in the coming weeks. And I think all that leaves us is for X to say...
Good night, Internets. Check out escapistreads.com.
Escapistreads.com!
Escapistreads.com!
Oh.